Have you ever found yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, completely exhausted, yet your brain simply refuses to shut down? You have probably tried everything. You cut off caffeine after noon, you bought the expensive blackout curtains, you lowered the room temperature, and you even put away your phone an hour before bed. But you are still awake. For decades, we have been told that sleep is a puzzle that exists entirely inside our heads. We thought it was all about calming the mind, balancing brain chemistry, and managing psychological stress. But what if the root cause of your sleep problems is not starting in your brain at all? What if the real control center for your nightly rest is located deep inside your digestive system?
It sounds like science fiction, but it is rapidly becoming one of the most profound discoveries in modern metabolic medicine. We are learning that there are trillions of microscopic organisms living inside your gut, an entire ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, and viruses. And these organisms are not just passive passengers waiting for your next meal. They are highly active biological agents. They are quietly, constantly influencing the depth of your sleep, the vividness of your dreams, your physical recovery, your baseline stress levels, and even the delicate balance of your entire nervous system. If you are struggling to achieve deep, restorative sleep, there is a very real possibility that your gut bacteria are literally eating into your rest.
That completely flips the traditional script on human biology. Most of us grew up learning a very mechanical view of the human body. We were taught that the gut is basically just a biological furnace. You put food in, it breaks it down, it extracts the calories, and it gets rid of the waste. The idea that this dark, acidic environment is somehow dictating our neurological state, our mood, and our sleep architecture is almost unbelievable. It implies that we are not entirely driving our own biological vehicles.
We are definitely not driving alone. The gut is vastly more complex than a simple digestive tube. The microbiome, which is the collective term for all these microorganisms, behaves almost like a completely separate, highly intelligent biological organ. To put it in perspective, the sheer number of microbes in your gut outnumbers your own human cells. They have their own DNA, they produce their own chemicals, and they form complex microbial cities. And this ecosystem is in constant, real-time communication with your immune system, your hormonal pathways, and your brain.
How exactly does a microscopic organism in the intestine send a message all the way up to the brain to affect something as complex as sleep? There has to be a physical or chemical bridge between the two.
There is, and it is fascinating. It is called the gut-brain axis. Think of it as a massive, high-speed biological internet connection. The primary physical cable of this network is the vagus nerve, which runs directly from your brainstem down into your abdomen, touching your heart, your lungs, and your digestive tract along the way. But it is not just a physical connection. It is also a chemical one. These microbes produce inflammatory molecules, metabolic byproducts, and immune signals that travel through the bloodstream. So, if your gut ecosystem is stressed, unbalanced, or under attack from a poor diet, it instantly uploads that stress data to your brain.
So, if I am understanding this correctly, my thoughts, my daily energy levels, and my ability to fall asleep are being directly influenced by the chemical text messages my gut bacteria are sending to my brain.
Precisely. And one of the most critical messages they send involves neurotransmitters. When we think about sleep, we usually think about brain chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and of course, melatonin. We assume the brain manufactures all of these on demand. But the reality is that many of these vital compounds are heavily influenced by, and in some cases primarily produced in, the gut. For instance, a massive portion of the serotonin in your body is associated with the gut environment.
Wait, serotonin? That is usually known as the happy chemical, the neurotransmitter that stabilizes our mood and makes us feel calm and secure. But how does that connect to sleep? Is serotonin a precursor to sleep hormones?
Exactly. Serotonin is absolutely foundational because it is the direct biological building block for melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that dictates your circadian rhythm. It tells your body that it is dark and it is time to sleep. If your microbiome is out of balance, a condition we call dysbiosis, your serotonin production and signaling can become severely compromised. And if you do not have the right serotonin activity, your body simply cannot produce adequate melatonin at the right time. You end up with sleep fragmentation, where you wake up multiple times a night, or a disrupted circadian rhythm where your body thinks it is high noon when it is actually midnight.
That makes so much sense. It is like trying to build a house, but the supply chain in the gut is broken, so the brain never receives the bricks it needs to build a solid night of sleep. But I imagine it is not just about missing the good chemicals. What happens when the gut starts producing the wrong signals? You mentioned inflammatory molecules earlier.
That is the second major pathway, and it is arguably the most destructive. An unhealthy microbiome, one that is starved of fiber and overloaded with processed foods, begins to degrade. The protective lining of the gut can weaken, allowing toxins to leak into the bloodstream. When the immune system detects this, it triggers systemic inflammation. And inflammation is the absolute enemy of quality sleep. It acts as a constant, low-grade biological alarm bell.
It is like trying to fall asleep in your bedroom while the fire alarm is going off down in the basement. You might eventually pass out from sheer exhaustion, but your brain is never going to fully relax because it thinks the house is on fire.
That is a perfect metaphor. And that low-grade alarm brings us to the third mechanism, stress physiology. The microbiome is deeply connected to what we call the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HPA axis. This is the system that regulates your cortisol levels and your fight-or-flight response. When your microbiome is unbalanced, it can send signals that hyperactivate the HPA axis. Your body starts pumping out cortisol at inappropriate times. This creates a state of hyperarousal. Your nervous system becomes highly unstable, making you incredibly sensitive to stress. You know that feeling when you are exhausted but your mind is racing and your heart is beating just a little too fast? That is hyperarousal, and it is frequently driven by gut inflammation.
Which perfectly explains a phenomenon so many people experience today. You see people who eat a terrible diet, live under constant high stress, consume highly processed foods, and suffer from chronic bloating or digestion issues. And their primary complaint is almost always that they feel deeply fatigued, they have brain fog, and no matter how many hours they spend in bed, they wake up feeling like they never slept at all.
Because they really didn't. At least, not in the way the body needs. This brings us to one of the most critical distinctions in modern sleep science, the difference between sleep duration and sleep depth. We have been socially conditioned to obsess over getting exactly 8 hours of sleep. But 8 hours of shallow, fragmented, inflammation-riddled sleep is not the same as deep, restorative sleep. Deep sleep is an active biological repair state. It is the phase where your brain clears out metabolic waste, your immune system recalibrates, your cells repair themselves, and your nervous system recovers from the trauma of the day.
So if you have this systemic inflammation and elevated cortisol driven by an angry microbiome, your brain might keep you in the lighter stages of sleep to stay alert to the perceived danger. You are essentially unconscious, but you are not recovering.
Beautifully said. Unconsciousness is not recovery. Some of the most cutting-edge studies are now showing a direct correlation between the diversity of a person's microbiome and their sleep architecture. People with a rich, diverse ecosystem of gut bacteria tend to have much better sleep efficiency. They transition smoothly through the sleep cycles. They spend adequate time in REM sleep for emotional processing, and, most importantly, they get sufficient deep sleep for physical restoration. Conversely, a depleted microbiome robs you of that architecture.
That is a staggering realization. It means our modern lifestyle is almost perfectly designed to destroy our ability to rest. If you look at how we live today, it is essentially a masterclass in how to ruin a microbiome.
Unfortunately, yes, we have engineered an environment that is deeply hostile to our own biology. Think about the standard modern routine. We consume highly processed foods that are stripped of the fiber our gut bacteria need to survive. We sit at desks all day, starving our bodies of movement. We endure chronic psychological stress from our jobs and our screens. We rely on alcohol to wind down, which acts like a chemical bomb in the gut. We overuse antibiotics, which wipe out entire microbial cities. And we expose ourselves to artificial blue light late into the night, which confuses our circadian rhythms. Every single one of these factors lowers microbial diversity.
And the terrifying part is that this creates a vicious, self-sustaining loop. You live a stressful, modern lifestyle, which damages your microbiome. The damaged microbiome creates inflammation and blocks serotonin, which ruins your sleep. And then, because you slept terribly, you wake up craving sugar and processed carbs for quick energy, your stress hormones are already elevated, and your gut barrier is even weaker. Poor sleep damages the gut, and the damaged gut further destroys your sleep.
It is a biological debt spiral. Sleep loss directly alters your glucose metabolism and compromises your immune function. It even weakens the physical integrity of your gut lining. So the next day, the microbiome imbalance amplifies your anxiety, your cravings, and your nervous system instability. You are fighting a war on two fronts: neurological exhaustion and metabolic dysfunction.
This is where I think the future of health technology becomes incredibly fascinating. Because for a long time, we were flying blind. We could only guess what was happening inside our guts or how well we were sleeping based on how tired we felt in the morning. But now we are entering the era of AI and advanced wearables. People are walking around with devices on their wrists and fingers that track heart rate variability, respiratory rates, skin temperature, and detailed sleep stages.
Yes, and these wearables are essentially becoming real-time nervous system monitors. We are moving away from just counting steps to actually measuring the subtle physiological echoes of the gut-brain axis. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is a perfect example. HRV is a measure of the time variation between your heartbeats, and it is a fantastic indicator of nervous system balance. A high HRV means your body is resilient and relaxed. A low HRV means you are stuck in a stress state.
So, in the near future, could an AI system look at my wearable data and actually predict that my microbiome is struggling before I even feel sick?
That is exactly where the science is heading. Imagine a scenario where your wearable AI notices a subtle pattern over a few days. Your HRV is slowly dropping, your baseline nighttime body temperature is slightly elevated, indicating low-grade inflammation, your deep sleep duration is shrinking, and your stress markers are rising. The AI could connect these dots and alert you that your metabolic health and gut ecosystem are destabilizing, long before you develop obvious symptoms like chronic insomnia or severe digestive issues.
It is almost like learning to translate early biological whispers. Instead of waiting for the body to scream in the form of a disease, we can listen to the subtle shifts in the data. That feels like a monumental shift in how we approach human health. We are moving from reactive disease management to proactive physiological awareness.
It is one of the biggest shifts in the history of medicine. We are finally recognizing that human biology is not a collection of isolated organs acting independently. It behaves exactly like an ecosystem in nature. You cannot poison the soil and expect the tree to bear healthy fruit. If you want to fix your sleep, you cannot just medicate the brain. You have to cultivate the soil of your gut.
Let us make this highly practical for the people listening who are realizing right now that their gut might be the reason they are so exhausted. How do we break the vicious cycle? What are the foundational principles to support both a thriving microbiome and deep restorative sleep?
It comes down to sending signals of safety and stability to your biology. First, consistent sleep timing. Going to bed and waking up at the exact same time every day anchors your circadian rhythm, which helps regulate both brain and gut function. Second, nutrition. You have to feed the ecosystem. That means prioritizing fiber-rich whole foods, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds, while drastically reducing ultra-processed foods and refined sugars that feed harmful bacteria.
It sounds like we need to stop eating just for our own taste buds and start eating to feed the trillions of pets living inside us.
That is a great way to look at it. You are the caretaker of a microscopic zoo. Beyond food, stress reduction is non-negotiable. Because the vagus nerve is a two-way street, calming your mind through breathwork, meditation, or simply walking in nature sends a physical signal of safety down to your gut. Daily movement helps regulate motility and metabolic health. And finally, prioritizing actual recovery. Taking time to let your nervous system power down before bed rather than stimulating it with screens and stressful information.
This perfectly encapsulates the broader philosophy of deep health intelligence. We have to stop viewing our bodies as machines with broken parts that can be swapped out or isolated. Everything is intimately connected. The quality of your sleep dictates your stress resilience. Your stress levels dictate the health of your microbiome. Your microbiome dictates your levels of systemic inflammation. That inflammation dictates your ability to physically recover, and your daily recovery ultimately dictates your long-term longevity.
Exactly. When you pull on one thread of human biology, you find it is attached to everything else. You cannot optimize the mind while neglecting the gut, and you cannot heal the gut while depriving the mind of rest. It is a beautiful, complex symphony, and every instrument has to be in tune.
It leaves you with a profound sense of awe, doesn't it? The idea that your microbiome is entirely invisible to the naked eye, yet its influence over your daily reality, your emotional state, and the depth of your rest is absolutely enormous. We are, quite literally, walking universes.
We are, and I think the future of health intelligence is simply learning how to listen to that universe earlier and with more respect, long before dysfunction has a chance to become disease.
That is a perfect thought to end on. This has been a journey into the hidden language of the human body. We have explored the frontiers where neuroscience, sleep architecture, metabolic health, AI wearables, and the trillions of microbes inside you all converge. If this conversation shifted the way you think about your body and your sleep, make sure to subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and join us for our next exploration into the incredible intelligence of human biology. Until next time, sleep well and remember to feed your ecosystem.